Divorce rates in the United States are well over 50% and still rising. And unfortunately, things aren't very different for those of us in the church. Or are they? Well, stay tuned because in this series we're going to be talking about some myths about Christianity that you've probably been told your entire life. And on this episode, we tackle Christian divorce. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Justin and you are watching That Christian Vlogger. I like to say that this is a place where you get to join me and experience faith in the first person. I make videos talking about some of the more commonly believed myths about Christianity like this one every single Monday and Thursday. So in order to know when new videos are out, definitely hit the subscribe and bell notification buttons below. Have you ever heard anyone ever say that 1 out of every 2 marriages will end up in divorce? I know that I have, and as someone who grew up in a broken home, I cannot tell you how many times that I've heard this statistic, whether it was shared in school or from the pulpit. And if I'm honest with myself, getting divorced is probably one of my greatest fears of my entire life. That somehow my marriage might end up like one of the countless others that have ended up in divorce. You might think that this fear would eventually subside when I would meet my wife and that I would just have this reassurance that everything would be okay, but it didn't. In fact, this fear only got worse when I met Emily. Emily, who, by the way, I have the privilege of sharing our 2-year anniversary with today. So Emily, I just wanted to say that I love you and I'm looking forward to dinner tonight. So why did meeting Emily make this fear so much worse? Well, partially because apparently in her entire family, with her dozens of aunts and uncles, not a single one has ever gotten a divorce. Not even one. Now, this just blew my mind back then when I first learned it, and it still blows my mind to this day. I was thinking that these guys have to be freaks of nature, right? Or at bare minimum, they have to be angry, lying, resentful, and unhappy in their marriages, right? Because there's no way that so many people end up both married and happy. Well, you might be surprised to learn this notion that half of all marriages ending in divorces is actually false. Time magazine announced in November of 2016 that US divorce rates actually dropped for the 3rd year in a row, reaching its lowest point in nearly 40 years. And no, this isn't because less and less people are getting married, because apparently in 2015, a study done by the National Center for Family and Marriage Research recorded that the number of marriages relative to the female population actually increased since 2014. Bloomberg also cited a few points really worth mentioning. Probably in part because they've heard so much about the dangers and pitfalls of marriage from their parents, young people today are getting married significantly later than their parents and are actually getting divorced less. From the 40s all the way to the 70s, the typical woman was barely 20 years old on her wedding day, and today, that average woman is over the age of 27. Which, as a side note, it really makes you think when a person who is part of the generation who have had some of the highest rates of divorce in the last century, when that person tells you that you're too young to get married or you're too young for a serious relationship, maybe, just maybe it's worth considering. But the main question that I have for those of us who have either recently gotten married or are still single is, how do we continue this positive momentum? How do we change the trend set before us by the baby boomer generation who set pretty much every single record in the book on marriage and divorce? For some guidance, I want to share with you something that I learned from this book called Christians Are Hate-Filled Hypocrites and Other Lies You've Been Told by sociologist Bradley Wright. In his book, where Wright talks about several different lies you've been told, whether it was by the secular or even the religious media, he actually gives some helpful food for thought on Christian divorce. Did you know the difference in statistics on divorce actually vary according to the average church attendance? According to his analysis on the data, those who have never before attended church have divorce rates of around 60%, which is a huge difference when compared to the 38% of those who attend church on a weekly basis. There also is a difference amongst different religious denominations, with, for example, Catholics having the lowest divorce rates, followed by mainline Protestants, evangelicals, and Black Protestants. In fact, Harvard-trained researcher and author Shanti Feldhahn also echoes this fact in her book, which is called The Good News About Marriage: Debunking Discouraging Myths About Marriage and Divorce. She mentions that of all marriages, Christian marriages actually prove to be the most durable. She mentions, and I quote, "and it's even lower among churchgoers, where a couple's chance of divorcing is more likely in the single digits or teens." Apparently, the advice that your grandmother gave you all those years ago wasn't so far off base after all. Put God first in your personal life and be sure to have Christ to be the very foundation upon which you build your marriage. Learn to forgive each other and serve each other just as Jesus did for the church, and you can actually have a happy and successful marriage. Of course, this is in no way saying that Christians are perfect or by any stretch of the imagination that you being a Christian just makes marriage magically easy. As someone who has just spent the last 730 days of his life being married to the most amazing woman in the world, I will say that it still requires hard work, humility, and honesty every single day. But if these last 2 years have taught me anything about life, it is that there is not a single person with whom I would rather do life with. Emily, you are the most amazing and caring woman that I know, and I look forward to a lifetime of service both with you and to you. So thank you so much for making me the happiest man in the world 2 years ago. Well, thanks so much for watching to the end. I know Christian divorce can be a sensitive subject, but I still want to hear your thoughts on this video. As a young person, or even a young at heart person, what do you think of when it comes to marriage and divorce? And what advice would you give to those who are like me, still very fresh on this journey? Share with me your thoughts down below. But until next time, I'm That Christian Vlogger, and I want to encourage you to experience faith in the first person. God bless.